Hello, everyone. Welcome to another series of IPCD Expert Talks. And today we are going to talk about a very interesting topic, which is belonging in a workplace. And it has lots of meaning around it. So before talking about in detail, I wanted to introduce these words to you. Belongingness is not just a word, it's a feeling. It's something that connect people. It drives creativity. It's a very important cultural word that we can use within to drive the transformation within an organization. And it's very close word to me as well personally when I was working, and what I realized within an organization, what it made me to work in a certain organization for 18 years without shifting my job is because of this belongingness. I think this word will resonate well with you all. And today I have an amazing speaker who can talk about that in depth. So he is Ben Heath. Ben, welcome to IPCD Expert Talks today. I'm so privileged to have you. And Ben is an experienced and influential senior leader who worked over 24 years in British Army, and he has a service of 24 years across different areas in British Army. And he basically drive organizational performance and cultural transformation. And he led high performing teams and individuals across different industries. So I believe that Ben is the ideal person to talk about in detail. And before we start, I would like to know more about Ben. Ben, tell us a little bit about you.
Harshani, thank you. A very flattering introduction. Something to live up to there. So yeah, I joined the army at the age of 16, embarking on a 20+ year career. Joined into the Royal Signal, so a very technical background and trade, but wanted to do something different whilst I was serving. Lots of different opportunities and environments you can go and work in. So I ended up going and working in some specialist areas in the military, which was a real privilege and gave me a real insight into some of those kind of niche and really kind of high performing areas that we have, and spent probably around half my career in those spaces, and again probably about half of that time also in that training, learning and development space, bringing people through selection processes and training and preparing them for operations, and then promoting along the way. And then I finished up as a senior leader, as you say, as a regimental sergeant major. So the term I would use is the kind of the head of organisational development. So anything kind of people focused would come to me. And actually the kind of being the custodian or bastion of our organisational values and standards was something in my job specification. So trying to foster that sense of belonging, trying to connect people to that purpose and that back to some of those traditions that we have was a big part of my job. So I did that for 24 years. I've then left in May 24, and then for the last sort of 18 months to 2 years nearly, I've been working as a learning and development consultant, so focusing on leadership development programs for anything from graduates, early careers, all the way up to kind of senior leadership programs. Something I really love, really enjoy and get a lot out of. So yeah, so that's me. You're on mute.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Ben. It's an interesting word. So if I say ask you, what does belonging means to you as a person?
Yeah, good one. It's for me, it's that that feeling, that sense of being part of something that's bigger than yourself, and kind of having pride in that. And that can be team, that can be community, that can be organization, but it's being connected and included in that environment. And it can be what you do, it can be who you're with, and it can be the uniform you wear, but it's feeling like you are part of something that's much bigger than yourself.
Yeah, that's really a good explanation. I can resonate with that. Once I talked to one of the career individuals, she said the color of the uniform, and she has a different color. I have a different color. So that also divides some culture. She didn't think that she's belonging to that category of, how when we are thinking about small things that happen in an organization, not only organization, Benny, even in a family context, a social context, this word is dealing with feelings of people, the individuals, how they are connected with that community. So when we are creating about teams and the cultures, I think this is a very good word to hold on to see that whether this I made that person belong to my
Mm-hmm.
team, whether I made that person belong to my organization, belong to my conversation,
Mm-hmm.
and belong to my communications. And is she included in the sharing of these information and insights? So these are really good. I think it's a very good point to start with. And most of the organizations struggle with creating that culture because people are different, diverse. So it's very complex to understand each other, how they behave, and then make them inclusive and belong to an organization environment.
Yeah.
So when you are working with number of industries and across organizations,
Yeah.
what are the barriers that organization face in making these people belong in a context?
Yeah, I think the barriers that you see are probably typically a lack of maybe focus or attention on some of the things that really do connect people to that to that sense of kind of community and what was there before them. The passing down of stories, the corporate knowledge, the why we do things, why things have changed, where we came from, all of that kind of stuff. It kind of gets missed, but it it's quite often should be ingrained in some of those rhythms, the rituals, the traditions. And if think back to my military time, it was absolutely flooded with them, but there was a reason and a purpose behind all of them, and they were the things that each of the different kind of tribes or cap badges, if you like, had their own slight traditions and different ways of doing things. And it's understanding those things and feeling the pride in those things. But in organizations, I think the busyness, the importance is not normally kind of placed on that. So because they're so busy, it's always a focus on just the results, just the numbers, just trying to get things done. But there is so much underneath the surface that you can do that helps to connect people together and bring them in. And it can be little and often. It can be just making the time to do some of those small things. But it's so powerful when you do it, and you won't necessarily. And again, the problem is that you don't necessarily see an immediate response or an immediate return, but consistency over time of introducing these things, reminding people start to get it. People start to feel included. Oh, that's why we do things. That's how we do things. That's how we do things here. I'm a part of this, and you just start to build that up. And I think that's really important. And it's really key that we do this, because the more we do this, the more people feel included, and that's a need we have, isn't it? That's something that's incredibly important, that again is quite often forgotten about. But it's this kind of physiological need that we have. Every time we go into a new setting or a workplace or a new environment, we're constantly scanning that environment, and our brains are making these decisions about whether it's safe, where we fit in, what's the kind of hierarchy, all of that kind of those kind of ancient ways that our brains have developed. We still do that, and so we need to make sure that we are fostering this, because if we're spending time focusing on all these other things, we can't then focus on the job in hand. So I think I think that's kind of the why as well. So it's there's some barriers there, some of those the attention to detail, but it really underpinned, and it
Yeah.
should be connected to why we're doing it, to that actual need to make sure we're spending the time.
Yeah, it is an interesting point we are in, Ben. This is a digital world, people going to AI workplace are trying to improve productivity through using numerous digital tools. And we tend to see the tangible or the numbers, and then drive the organization based on the numbers. But there's a hidden qualitative aspect of people management, which we cannot sometimes justify through numbers, results in a short run, but it will affect for the long term. It's a challenging situation, I feel like organization face and the leaders face sometimes. Some, if you justify there's an event or a kind of initiative that plan to create that belongingness in an organization, what is the ROI of this? You cannot give a kind of a value to this qualitative aspect. I think, yeah, you're right. It's a bit tricky. That is why there's a huge difference across organization, how they make people to feel about their organization, isn't it? So by having reflecting on your work and the involvement with the organization, can you tell us some practical steps that we can that somebody in an organization can implement to make that belonging, or maybe some things that already organizations implemented that you can share with our community?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, so from my perspective, I think as a leader, as somebody with responsibility for other people, I think there are quite a few things that you can do that don't necessarily require a lot of effort, but they just do require focus and consistency over time. And I'd say first and foremost, coming back to embracing, the kind of history and heritage and where you've come from, and I get, there's some, because this could be a challenge in new organizations, startups and things like that. So it might be a little bit more difficult, but there's going to be a kind of wider reason for your existence and why you're there. And I think, being able to connect people to that, or something that's, an organization that's done something similar, or similarly in the past. So really trying to connect those, and by connecting those, I mean spending the time and building those into the way you do things, whether it's a reward and recognition scheme that's linked to something from the past, through naming, through what the prize is, or whatever it is, or whether or not it's doing a certain thing at a certain time, or there are lots of different ways to kind of to connect some of those rituals and traditions. And also you can create your own. You can do things the way that you want to do them, and it's just about having everybody kind of buying into that's the way things are. When you look at lots of sporting teams and high performing environments, they have these things that just ingrained, they just come naturally to them. They just, there's no question, because it's part of who they are. It's what makes them uniquely that organization. And it's the kind of uniqueness of the uniqueness of that collective, if that makes sense. That is what people want to be part of, isn't it? They want to feel part of that specific team, that organization, or this community of people. So how do we do that? And again, that could be branded t-shirts with a logo or whatever else. I was in an organization of probably about 6 months ago now, I think, and I remember them talking about not having enough t-shirts. There weren't enough the t-shirts with their badge on and everything, and that immediately kind of triggered for me. I was like, that is it's not a good problem to have, but it's such a powerful observation that people want these. People want to be wearing them. People want to feel the pride of being part of this organization. And so the senior leadership in the organization, that's something really telling. And that's, well, I can pick up on that, whether that's come through in, like a pulse survey, some of the questions, whether you feel safe in work, what are some of the feeling valued in your team, or what are some of the things you can do to help connect you to the wider team, whatever those things are, making sure you do them as well. You said, we did, being quite transparent, and you can get some really, really quick and easy wins by just doing that. But like I said, they're not groundbreaking, they're not massive, they're just those small things consistently over time that I think really, really help to connect people.
Yeah, true, very powerful, Ben. It's about, if I summarize your points, it's about making that consistent effort. That other people in the organization feel that yes, this is something that they seriously do, and it. Over the years, we need to continue that momentum, to continue the same culture. When people change in an organization, if there's a good practice happening, and you should not discontinue it. If it builds the culture and the community. So you need to we see that when people change, the leadership change, they change some of the good practices, then the consistency change, and then different personality aspects brings to the culture that will again create another one. So bringing that, continuing the good practice and having that consistency create trust within the organization. That, I think, one point you made. And uh, personal stories, I think. Yes. Do you want to add something,
I was
Ben?
just going to say, just to kind of reinforce my point, or I think it's important to note, what I'm not saying is we become stuck in our ways and we can't change and we can't
Yes.
adapt and we can't evolve. That's absolutely not what I'm saying. I'm saying we hold on to the things that make us uniquely us. That's what
Yeah.
I'm
So it comes with organizational values, isn't it?
Yeah.
Organizational values, how we align ourselves with the organizational values, whatever we do, whether it sits within those values.
Yeah.
So as long as it has that connection, people feel that this is an organization. It create a brand overall across that, create a brand story around that, and the brand personality around that. I think all our small actions within the organization, it culminates to a point where it creates a kind of culture, the community, the way people interact and engage, and it can transform and communicate it to the outside through their brand communications to make that more visible and explicit. Yeah. So your personal value, and I want to ask from you, right, as an individual, let's go to that in the I think it's not about leaders making that culture, but there's a part that we can play as an individual in an organization. So sometimes our personal values and the organizational values, how we can make that alignment and contributing personally to this, making us belong as well as making others belong to our culture. So, what is our role as an individual, Ben?
I think it's being true to yourself, being able to have the kind of moral courage to be able to do the things, to be essentially being authentic, is like living by your values, doing the things that you hold dear. And I think, to your point of how they align with the organization, I mean, that's part of that initial process. You're applying for a job or joining a team or a club because there's something about them that resonates with you. And so, yes, there are sometimes mismatches and things that don't necessarily work, and things don't work out for some teams, but you need to find that alignment, and what those kind of wider team or organizational values and behaviors, what they mean for you specifically, so you can write your own story with them and leave that behind in that kind of corporate knowledge and legacy. I think it kind of all connects to that. The history isn't something to be forgotten about. It's something that should be there to kind of power and connect us together. But at that point, it's then your time. Like, what are you going to do? And I love, the book from James Kerr, Legacy, and talking about it being your time and leaving New Jersey in a better place. And so, what are you going to do in alignment with your values and those organizations? How are you going to better yourself and better the organization and leave it so that when you do inevitably move on, somebody else picks it up in a better place and can take that forward? So how can we kind of try and align those things to maximize and continue to move things forward?
Yeah. So basically, thinking about, yes, it's I thinking boils down to one word I always use is intrapreneurship, isn't it, Ben? So how
Mm,
you understand, how you contribute to the organization, and it's not only you work 9 to 5. Within that job role, the description, what value I can add to the team, the organization, what creativity that I can bring, how can I do things differently. It's
mm,
thinking that, yes, you have a job, but within that job specification that I have,
mm,
act as an entrepreneur, bringing new thinking, and uh, better, working better to the organization within your value system and your beliefs and the way of doing work. But yeah, so it's having that uniqueness of bringing that authenticity, the personal values, and that creativity, and giving living in that culture with other team, and understanding, actually it's an intentional activity, isn't it, Ben? So it's
mm.
not something that are written in rules, but it's how you really feel connected, engage in an organization,
Yeah,
and making that intentional effort to belong to that
yeah,
organization, as well as intentional effort to make others inclusive.
mm,
Am I have I make them belong to this conversation? Is it
yeah,
is there any information that I didn't share with them?
yeah.
It's thinking about back and forth and really feel like there's I need to make others belong, and how can I contribute to this culture?
And
Isn't it?
buying into that, because I think if you buy into that, then that intentionality comes with it, because you then think about, well, how can I make things better today? How can I improve things? How can I, if I'm part of a team that's providing a service or supporting another department, how do I do that in the best way possible to help these other people? How can I connect somebody else? Well, how can I make sure that we are having, the or maximizing our effect in whatever those outputs are? How, like, constantly thinking, but that intentionality comes with a desire to be part of it, with a buy-in. And also, if we think about where we're then focusing our energy and our attention, go back to the reason why this is really important, is because if we are worried in the workplace about not fitting in, about being bullied, about comments behind our back, about job loss, about all these other things, we then leak energy, we then leak focus, and we aren't focusing on the goal. We aren't focusing on the outputs that we should be doing. And so it's all really important stuff.
Yeah, that's really powerful, Ben. So, at the end, what is the key message that you want to, if somebody is asking, one thing that they need to take away from this conversation, what is that one thing, Ben?
I think for me, the most important thing um, is do not forget about what makes you uniquely you, whether that's a team, whether that's a department, an organization, a club, whatever it is. What is it that makes you uniquely you, and how do you give others, or bring others into that sense, and let that be them, let them bring themselves into there and be part of that as well? How do we bridge that gap? How do we allow people to be themselves in those environments?
Wow, that's powerful. That means being you always and let others to be them.
Mhm.
Right? It's called belongingness, and then how we can create culture from there. So, thank you so much for sharing these insights with us. And looking forward to share more insights through IPCD, and then you wishing you all the very best for your journey as a consultant and a team lead, and as well as a trainer, spreading this awareness across organization and nurturing the community. Ben, and connect with Ben through social media and then his LinkedIn, and he's supporting organizations and teams during this period, and then he's even a trainer and delivering a lot of insightful talks around leadership and leadership communication and then team performance aspects. So I think I'm privileged to have you today, Ben, to share these insights, and I believe the audience will use these words to be belong and make others belong in an organization. Thank you so much, and hope to
Thank
see you
you.
soon.
Thank you. Privilege is all mine. Thank you.